Welcome to the season premiere, College Basketball Net Profit, Pub Sports Radio. Ian, Cameron, Connor, Mac, we are ready for the start of a huge college basketball season, and great to be back for another year of college hoops. I mean, this is a fun sport. It's one of those sports where, maybe you ease into it early, maybe you don't, but either way, I mean, football's still going. Sometimes, you lose track of the fact that college basketball started, but I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to this huge slate for this opening day of the season. A ton of games to break down. We'll be here with you 3 days a week for the first month or two. Once we get into January, we'll probably expand the show to weekdays, like Monday to Friday basis. Once we get college football behind us and we get into January, conference season starts, the focus on college basketball ramps up in January. So we'll definitely extend the show to 5 days in the new year. But for now, we'll do 3 days a week, and we'll try to pick the 3 days with the most games. And that way gives you guys the most betting opportunities on the board each and every week. Connor, Mac, before we get into the games, just your excitement level for college basketball. Good to have it back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love college basketball. Nothing gets me more pumped. College football, I do have to say. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back here. Shout out to Pub Sports Radio, our producer Jose in the back. Urbano. Another year, net profit. Everyone joining us, hit the like, hit the retweet. You know the deal. Become a member if you can. Help support Pub Sports Radio. And today, right away, we ain't messing around. There's a ton of games. I like to ease it, too, as you say, Babano, but I know you're not. This guy's firing away like a psycho over here. He's got like 65 bets or something. I'm a little ease into it a little bit because football's still at the top for me. But there's money to be made, and I think especially early in some of these lines, some of these games, and there's big spreads. They play these shitty teams, so we will try to find winners as we always do. And shout out to the chat real quick as we hit everyone. Our guy Joe, yeah, little I said Babano was just finishing the NBA show, my man. We are here. C. James, Boston Nick, Dale, good to see you as a member. Up in the green guy. T-Mac is always here. Tori Coker, good to see you. Don Play, Nuke Worker, and retired. It's been about a year now almost, Nuke, right? You've been retired. Shout out to him. Jake Burns. Let's get to work. Enough of the bullshit. Let's get to the games.
Yeah, let's get to it. So we're going to do a few of the marquee games. We're going to have games that Connor likes specifically and game bets that I like specifically. But we'll start with LaSalle and Villanova. A good old-fashioned Philly battle here in this one. Should be interesting to see how this one plays out. You got Villanova, 15-point home favorites here in this game tonight. The total currently right now sitting at approximately in the 140s, it looks like, in this game with LaSalle and Villanova. 136.5, I should say, with the total here, LaSalle and Villanova. Interesting storyline. Fran Dunphy taking over as the head coach of LaSalle, years at Temple. And, of course, a changing of the guard for Villanova. Out is Jay Wright, who decided to step down after last year. And Kyle Neptune takes over as the head coach here for Villanova. A guy that did a hell of it. People will say, wait a minute, he coached at Fordham and the record was still not great, but it was Fordham basketball. They've been a disaster. And I thought Kyle Neptune did a pretty damn good job making them as good as they were when he was there. Of course, there's going to be some changes when it comes to Villanova from that great team that we saw last year. Of course, they've been great for years. They're always in the national championship mix. But when you look at Villanova this year, Kyle Neptune taking over. They lose Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels from last year's team. Will they be able to still be able to replace those guys with that talent? They're still going to bring that top-level defense. LaSalle, to me, it's a tricky game here because you're talking about 15 points, a little bit of a rivalry game, but I think it's going to take some time for LaSalle. Let's not forget they've had some troubles at the defensive end of the court the last few years as well. That could take some time to adjust itself. So this is one where I considered laying the points with Villanova. I backed off a little bit, but I think for LaSalle and Dunphy, it's a program that's going to need some time, I think, to start to build this thing back up again. Connor, did you have any thoughts on this one, LaSalle, Villanova?
Yeah, let's get to it. You mentioned it. We'll see how LaSalle does in the Dunphy kind of era, but I think it's bigger, like you mentioned, with Nova here in the Neptune taking over. How much does this change I mean, Jay Wright's such a staple there, the couple championships and how good they've been the last 10 to 15 years. And Gillespie gone, you mentioned it. It's such a huge thing. He seemed like he was there for, I don't know, 6 years, which maybe he was. But they still have more in Daniels. I think they'll be solid. This game, just one I didn't want to get involved with too much. I think Nova could cover this number. You mentioned kind of a rivalry. When they've met, the Dogs covered here a little bit, LaSalle versus Nova. So tough one here. This one I had no bet on. We know LaSalle at times doesn't play much of defense and can go over, but we know Villanova can clamp down a team like this. And so maybe I'd lean a little bit under in this spot, but that'd just be my lean.
Now, keep in mind with Kyle Neptune at Fordham, they played, I don't want to say they didn't play fast, but they played a little bit more. You know, they were a snail pace team before he got there. They played a little bit faster. You know what you're going to get with Villanova. They're not going to speed things up. They don't mind playing in the half court. They're an elite defensive team. LaSalle on the other side with Fran Dunphy, they're going to be probably middle of the pack with tempo. They're not going to be extremely fast. Their offense is projected to be 208th in the country in terms of efficiency to begin the season. Now, these are projections based on the transfer portal, who they've brought in, who they bring back from last season. So all we're going on is projections on what we think they will be to begin the season. So we're not looking at LaSalle as a below average offensive team. Bottom line is I'm leaning to the under in this game from a totals perspective, but I did not pull the trigger on the side or the total. I would just lean to Villanova and I would just lean to the under. And by the way, last year it was 72-46 in favor of Villanova. They destroyed LaSalle and the game stayed way under the total because LaSalle only got 46 points against this Villanova team. So I would lean Villanova and LaSalle, but no bet for me on this one. Next up, we got IPFW, Purdue Fort Wayne, Michigan. Tonight, Michigan 15.5 point home favorites at the Chrysler Center. This total's been hammered up 146.5 all the way to 152 in this game. And when you look at it coming into the year, you look at this Purdue Fort Wayne bunch. They are a team that's expected to be 74th in the country in tempo. They're going to look to push pace. They're a solid enough offensive team. Will that work against Michigan? You know, that's going to be the big question. We know under Jawan Howard here for Michigan, we've seen them not pretty solid offensively, maybe a little bit of a step back defensively. Expect to be really good offensively this year are the Michigan Wolverines. So I kind of agree with the totals move, but again, with so many of these lines, it's the first day of the season. There's vultures out there, ladies and gentlemen, people that have their numbers, people that have the idea that, hey, this side's undervalued, this total's off the mark, and people aren't waiting until 5:22 p.m. Eastern time, a couple hours before tip-off to bet this stuff. They're betting it overnight. They're betting it the day before, early in the morning. So unfortunately, it's like you get to the buffet table, all the good food's gone, and there's only breadcrumbs and scraps left. That's where we're at with this card right now. A lot of the good bets and a lot of the bets that I've made, the lines moved like 5-6 points with some of these games. So now you're talking 152. That's a big move. I initially did like over the total in this game, but 152, you've lost a lot of that. I still lean that way, but it's just buyer beware. You're getting 6 or 7 points worse number now with the current number. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, we've seen a ton of movement, especially, the last week or so, and then last days getting up for this first game of the year. You mentioned it. They bring back the Mastodons, as I always like to say. They bring back, a bunch of scorers. They got to transfer Anthony Roberts. I think they can shoot it. Could score real well there. Here, what do we go with Michigan? There should just be good turnover there. They lost a ton. 3 of their double-digit scorers are out. Obviously, their main piece, the guy, is Hunter Dickinson, still there, 18-8. He should dominate, and they should be able to score it. It's just, does Michigan cruise here with this new lineup, game 1, to an easy 20-point win? I think this one could be a little bit tough for Michigan, maybe, just because all the players still back for the Mastodons. So I like the 16 a little bit. I didn't make this official. I just lean that way, and there should be points, but this total is high.
It sure is. All right, George Mason, Auburn here. Very interesting matchup here. We've got Auburn now down to, there's definitely been some money on the dog, and once again, in agreement with it, down to 9.5, 140.5 the total. in this game. I look at this matchup here. George Mason, they got off to that strong start. They kind of fizzled out when they got into A10 conference play, but Kim English, his first season, I thought he did a pretty solid job. They do have some issues with the point guard spot coming into the year a little bit, but when you look at this Auburn team, man, last year they had, bad shot selection. They had some 3-point issues at times. I think you look at George Mason, they're going to be able to maybe clog things up a little bit better in the paint area this year. I think they're a decent enough defensive team. And I think when you look at this Auburn team, they can just have some really bad possessions at times where it's just everything's scattered. The ball movement's not there. It's iso ball. It's jacking up threes that are contested, and you probably should look for a cleaner look, something better. I thought we saw a lot of that shit with Auburn last year, and that's not going to cut it. You look at it against George Mason coming into this season, and Bruce Pearl's got to figure things out with the backcourt, which has consistently been, I would say, an erratic position. When you look at what you've gotten from Auburn there with the guard position in years past, you lose Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler to the NBA. You bring in Johnny Broom from Morehead State, Johan Traore, the big freshman they think is going to help them out quite a bit. But, when you look at it and you see this backcourt with Wendell Green Jr., KD Johnson, how good are they going to be able to play? Because you just saw some really bad shit at times from them in terms of shot selection last year. That's a concern for me. I think George Mason, with what they bring back to Adoro, I think has the potential to be just an outstanding player once again for them. Remember how big it was when he was out and then he came back, and certainly they were a lot better team with him on the floor. I think George Mason can make this a competitive game, and I like them with the points. Again, I got 11.5. We've seen the number come down a bit. I actually think with this number, it hasn't come down as much as some of the other games, but I still think there's some wiggle room and some value you could go in with George Mason here, plus 9.5. Connor Mack, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, there should be good. Like you said, the value, though, is coming down a little bit in this one for 12.5, now down to 9.5. Oduro can light it up. And you mentioned Cooper and Gaines are very good as well. So I think they bring back a better team that was 14-16 last year in George Mason. That just wasn't very good, especially at times defensively. Let's look at the other side with Auburn. You mentioned, obviously, Smith going 3 in the draft is gone, but Broom, the Morehead transfer, should be good. This line's come down. I like Auburn to score points. And I always think George Mason can get theirs. I'm never impressed with Auburn's defense. I like the over here. I'm leaning that way strong. I haven't bet it, but I'm looking to bet that. I would take this over at 140.
All right, leaning toward over the total and points in this game. All right, we got VMI, the Keydets, and Richmond next up on the on this massive Monday slate of college basketball. We've got Richmond here up to 22.5-point favorites in this game, 141 being the total. This total has gone down significantly, 4 points. So big move toward the under here in this game when it comes to VMI and Richmond. This should be a fascinating game. VMI is one of those teams where, often when you don't have time to prepare for them, it can be difficult. They're such a unique type of matchup when you look at the way they play. How will Richmond handle that? The good news is you've got a good coach here. Mooney's been here forever. Richmond's usually a team that plays pretty solid defense. It's sometimes their offense that can get awry, which probably explains why the total's been bet down. Plus, VMI's lost a lot of their scoring, a lot of their firepower from last year that made that offense go. And you wonder now on the road for your opener against, a Richmond team that's going to try to pull you into the half court, try to really grind you down, not let you get those transition buckets and those open threes. It could be a tricky first matchup on the road for VMI. So I kind of understand why Richmond's taking the money. I kind of understand why the under's taking the money, because to me, this could be tricky, asking VMI to score some points here in this game. The number's certainly gotten very high, too high for my liking. Like, I'm not laying 22.5 because I like VMI as a program. I've made some money with them. It's just, I think this is with the loss of the offensive artillery from last year. This could be a tough first game. Maybe they lose bad tonight. Maybe there'll be some value with them moving forward. That's kind of the way I'm maybe planning to go about it with the Keydets here. What do you think, Connor? VMI Rich?
Yeah, this is one I looked at a bunch, tons of ways. You mentioned the Keydets. VMI were very good and profitable to us last year. And how could they not? Jake Stevens was unreal. The guy averaged 20 and 9. Kerfman, 15. They're all gone. So this is tough for them. Conway is the only guy that's returning. I think he averaged 7 or 8, right around there. I'd have to double and look that. But missing a ton. So initially, I like the under, like you mentioned, but man, it went from 144 to 140. So I agree with the move. I didn't hit it. And then the other way, Richmond has lost a bunch kind of their scoring. That's why this under, I think, very good. But Richmond's the better team, but I no way I'd lay this. I don't know why. And VMI's lost a shit ton. I'd take the points with them if I had to bet this game. Last year for us, I would have initially jumped right on this over around this number with these two teams. But I'm going to stay. I want to take a look at this team's little tape, the whole deal after tonight. But I'd lean under. It's just come down a little too much. But I'd be on the points if I had to. Free bet with VMI.
An award VMI would be for Conor in this one. All right, we got Citadel and Clemson next up. 18-point home favorites here. The Clemson Tigers, 137 and a half being the total here in this game. Everybody that's seen me, whether it was last year on the Net Profit Show, I know I was on Saturdays last year, and years past that I've done college basketball. You guys know very well that when it comes to college basketball coaches that I'm not very fond of. In the college basketball stratosphere for the Clemson Tigers, Brad Brownell would fit for me. I've not been the biggest fan of him. Now, has he done some good things? Yeah, at times. But when you look at Clemson going into this year, I think there could be some struggles from them. 4 of their top 7 scorers are gone. Nasbo Hannon, Alamir Dawes, among others. They don't have a lot of returning experience. I mean, a good stat to keep an eye on in college basketball this year is not only returning minutes, returning possession minutes as well, which is an even greater indication. Only 50% for Clemson in terms of returning possession minutes from last year's team. So that could be a little bit of an adjustment period for them coming into this season. And the one thing about the Citadel is they are a very, very tricky team to prepare for. I mean, if you're not, accustomed to seeing what you see from them, that's going to be interesting. But again, there's a little bit of a change at the guard for them. Ed Conroy is now their head coach. Remember, it was Duggar Bockham before. How is that going to impact things? Remember, this is a team that jacked up a shit ton of threes up and down the court. Big pace. I mean, you might get something different this year. So be careful. And you kind of think it kind of looks like it's going to be that way based on where the total is in this game in the 130s. This looks like it's going to be a Citadel team changing their spots a little bit from a pace standpoint. And it's going to be a question of how quickly will the totals adjust to the Citadel, because I think they're looking to slow it down a little bit this year, quite a bit. I lean Citadel here, plus 18. It's just a Clemson team. I'm not really looking to lay these points. Now, last year, remember, against Pittsburgh in their opener, they covered as a road underdog against another ACC team. So keep that in mind. But certainly not laying 18. I prefer the underdog here. Conor, what do you think?
I find this game tricky, real tricky here. Citadel's lost some of their scoring. They bring back Clark. On the other side, you mentioned Brownwell. Never bang on them. I thought Clemson played well last year, though. They kind of lived and died by the 3, and they bring back Hall, who was very, very good, and Hunter Tyson. This is a ton of points. Clemson's the better team, and I think they win this game. If I had to lean to play it, I'd lay it, but I'm not, so I'm off this one. And you mentioned the total being a little lower here is interesting. I don't know how good Citadel, you mentioned just up and down, and will they just chuck threes, that whole offense they used to be. And when they're in a game, when they're hitting those shots, they're in it. And when they're missing, they can get blown out by a team like this. So if they're on, they'll be in it. So hopefully the shots drop, you will cover.
Definitely the hope here in this game. All right, Ohio and Belmont. Believe it or not, these two teams faced each other last year to start the season in Ohio, the Convocation Center in Athens, and now they're going to play in Belmont's home court here to start the season. Belmont 5.5-point home favorites in Nashville in this game, and we're seeing the total in the 140s here. pretty much across the board. 145 being the total, up to 6 now from 5.5. I kind of agree with that. I think Belmont, it's not just the revenge spot. It's not that I don't really care too much about that. The Belmont lost at Ohio last year to begin the year. Oh, it's a revenge spot. This is more that Ohio's lost a lot from last year. Jeff Bowles has done a nice job. I mean, they've always been one of the better teams in the MAC. He's a pretty good basketball coach for this team. But they lost quite a bit, and returning possession minutes, 24.7% of their returning possession minutes are back for the Bobcats this year. So they really are replacing quite a bit from last year's group heading into this first game of the year. The top 3 scorers are gone. They do have Miles Brown still leading the way from an offensive standpoint, but they do lose quite a bit. And when you look at this Belmont Bruins team, they're moving, of course, to a brand new conference. They're now in the Missouri Valley starting this year, but after years in the OVC. Of course, Casey Alexander still the head coach here, doing a very solid job. You're going to get this team pushing the pace, looking to score in transition. Perimeter shooting is always a strength for the Belmont Bruins coming into this game. Ben Shepherd's the player to look out for this team. He's going to probably be one of the top players in this entire Missouri Valley Conference this year, if you ask me. I think for Belmont, too, the firepower's there. You end up losing a lot in terms of experience from this Ohio team. Now you got to play at Belmont's home court, which is never easy. And if those if the 3-point shot starts going, I think the big thing, too, is from what I've read, a lot of these departures that are going to negatively impact Ohio's ability to defend the 3. And obviously, if that's going to be a bad thing to defend the 3 against Belmont, you're going to have your issues. So I like Belmont here. I laid the 5.5, laid the 6. I like the over as well. It's a modest total, 145 for a Belmont game. And if they dictate pace, they dictate terms, we probably have a chance to see that game go up and over the total. What do you think here, CMAC, Ohio Belmont?
That's where I look. I'd be on the over.
92-80 last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ohio doesn't have the scoring, but they don't play any defense. They should get enough. I think they could hit the 70s in this game. And Belmont brings back enough. You mentioned switching conferences should be good for them. Ohio wasn't good on the road last year. I don't think they get any better. This number, though, with the 5.5 is a little bit of pause, but I'd lay it. I would take Belmont here in this one, and I'd be on the over if I had to bet it.
And the man that's responsible for the great channel here, Pub Sports Radio, Jeff Slaughter, with an announcement. We get 100 likes. Hit that like button here. We got 103 live viewers right now. We get 100 likes. He's going to pick 2 winners to receive a $50 either to their Cash App or their PayPal. Hey, there you go. Free $50. That should be enough to get 100 likes times 3, times 4 or 5 or something. So hit that like button. Yeah. Look at that. It's an early Christmas gift from the man, Jeff Slaughter, right there here on November 7th. Christmas come early. So hit that like button.
Hit it.
There you go. All right, next up as we continue along, we've got Memphis and Vanderbilt. I think in terms of name brand programs, this is about as big as it gets tonight because Memphis, Vanderbilt's obviously not been the best the last few years, but Memphis is always a program we think of as always being at least good. We got Memphis 3-point road favorites here in this game. The total 139.5. I like the under in this game, but everybody else does too. I understand why that is. Memphis has actually transitioned the last couple of years where they're really weak offensively, but they've actually picked it up on defense, and they don't play as fast as they did initially when Penny Hardaway got here. I think in terms of scoring, you look at this team, it's still a little bit scattershot with what they're going to get offensively this season. On the flip side, you've got a Vanderbilt team that I think when you look at their roster coming into the season, there's going to be some growing pains for them too, at the offensive end of the basketball court coming into the year. I mean, Vanderbilt, the Jordan Wright's going to have to be huge for them. He's likely going to be their best scorer this year, but there's not a lot to go around after that. Memphis is going to be a tough defensive team this year. So you can see Vanderbilt struggling to score points in this game. But again, with the Memphis Tigers, I've seen lengthy scoring droughts. Now they're going to hope like hell that Kendrick Davis, a big pickup in the transfer portal from SMU, coming to Memphis in the offseason is going to help this team. It should certainly help the ball movement, kind of the conductor, the point guard, if you will, help this offense, because there was times it was just brutal to watch Memphis try to execute their offense last year. So going to hope Kendrick Davis helps that. I think he will help that, but will it be in the very first game of the season? I'm not so sure. So I'm not involved in the side. I did bet under 142. It's gone down further to 139.5. I still think you can bet it. I think there's still some room here. I could see 70 to 64, something like that in this game. I think a low to mid 130s is where I think we end up having this final total when it's all said and done. Connor Mack, what do you think here?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's where I'd be on this one. Under nothing on the total. You mentioned it. What are we going to get? This Memphis basketball team, it just would go on these stretches of bad losses, can't cover, and then they, win or 5-6 straight and look so great. All this talent. You mentioned Lomax and Davis. Good transfers, should be good guards for them. They just struggled. The bad turnovers, ball movement. It was hard to watch them at times. This Memphis team. On the other side, obviously, no Scottie Pippen Jr. Here. But they still bring back 3 solid starters in Brown and a few others, which I think they could be good. They were 18-16 last year. I think that could be similar for Vandy. Memphis has this talent. I don't know. In the end, this game I wouldn't bet, or if I had to, I would take Vandy if I was catching 3 at home. I'd take Vandy and I lean under.
All right, taking Vandy now, lean into the home dog and the under as well. Murray State, St. Louis. We've got the Billikens here, double-digit home favorites in this game against Murray State, and the total up to 149. Huge move in the I like the move. I think there's points. I think St. Louis is going to be a very good offensive team, if you ask me, this season. I like a lot of what I'm seeing from them at the offensive end, and actually their defense has not been nearly as good, as it was a few years ago. So they've actually become more and more of an offensive-minded basketball team. And I think there's a chance you might see that carry over into the game tonight. I mean, they're very good, though, the St. Louis Billikens coming into this season. It should be very fun to watch this team play. No question about that. Murray State, of course, they bring in McMahon, or actually McMahon goes out. It's Jeff Brom. Back now. Remember, he had a stint at Iowa State after leaving Murray State. Now he's back here at Murray State. We'll see if he's able to bring that same success he had with Murray. Remember when John Morant was here years ago, so was Brom. So that's how long ago it was. But now he's back here at Murray State. But again, there's a lot of new faces here with Murray State. St. Louis, very experienced team coming back this year. Good offensive upside, and really Murray State defensively probably not matching up very well against what the Pelicans like to do here, quite honestly, in this game to start off. So when I look at this game, this would be a favorite and over kind of look for me. It's not the most cheap number. You're talking 13, but I think it's a tough spot here. First game of the year, Murray State on the road against a very, very good and well-oiled machine type of St. Louis team. Don't be surprised if St. Louis is right there at the end contending in the Atlantic 10, which is another conference where it's deep. There's a lot of good teams in it, and you could see one of 4 or 5 different teams win the A10 this year, and St. Louis is definitely one of them, in my opinion. So I like the home favorite, and I like the over, but again, the over's moved quite a bit, up to 149. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, it has moved. You mentioned they're pretty loaded, like Jemerson, Collins. They bring a ton of offense. They brought in from Missouri, Pickett. I don't know if you mentioned that. He should be solid for them. They should be able to score.
Monte Perkins, who's played here forever, is still around and playing for them. Yep, the Billikens.
Yep. The other side, Murray losing all these people, but they brought in some transfers, and have some stuff. How good will Jamari Smith, not Jabari, the cousin, from Auburn, that's now in the NBA, the third overall pick. How good will he be? They have a few others. Anderson is a transfer for Murray State. They've lost all this, and all I've heard is, St. Louis is just loaded, will cover, and I think they will. I lean that way, but this is a lot of points. And how much of a drop, Murray State? How bad are they? You mentioned them moving. They're going to be moving conferences now, too, from the OVC, Missouri Valley. So I don't know. You know what? Just all that they've lost, you just flip and go St. Louis, but that's why I'm going to stay off. I thought of just laying it But I want to see this, and I want to see what Murray State can do with all these guys in here. And it's the first game. There could be some troubles. So that's why I get why a lot, people like St. Louis in this spot. So I'm going to stay off.
All right. Next up, as we continue along here, we've got Winthrop and Penn State in the next matchup here. Should be an interesting one. We've got Penn State right now, 12.5-point home favorites, 141 the total in this game. This is another one where I took a look with the underdog here, Winthrop. Now, we know Penn State, they've had their struggles, certainly, over the years. They've been more of that below average, bottom tier Big Ten program in recent years. I think it's still going to take them a little bit of time, to become great and to become trustworthy, in terms of this kind of number. And Winthrop, if you actually look at the Winthrop team coming into this season, they've done a good job loading things up in the backcourt. They've got a ton of guards, and that's what I like to see coming into this season. They can handle the ball. They can shoot the three. Howard Fleming, Kaysen Harrison, among others. They're going to be able to shoot the 3-point shot. Good free throw shooting team. Lots to like here for Winthrop. They've got like I said, an extreme amount of depth in the backcourt. That's what I like to see. DJ Burns is going to be obviously someone they missed. He was a big player for them last year, but they've got more than enough. They raided the transfer portal. They loaded up the backcourt. Winthrop's going to be a solid team. And again, with Penn State, there's a lot of disjointment right now with this program. It remains to be seen if they're going to be able to overcome that this year. I mean, the offense has been kind of hit and miss, through the last couple of seasons in particular. We'll see if they're able to improve on that, but I'm definitely going to have to see it from Penn State before ready to endorse them. And I think from a matchup standpoint, you've got all this array of guards and shooters for Winthrop. I think that's going to allow them to hang real close here for the majority of this game with Penn State. So I like the Winthrop side here as a double-digit underdog. What do you think here, C-Matt?
I lean that way because I like Penn State. They're very good. Jalen Pickett returns. They have a good offense. And you know why I like them so much is at home. This is where they're pretty good. Zone team, 10-1. But Winthrop brings back enough. And I think that's back-to-back 23 years or so. Yeah. The last couple of years, Winthrop's been good. And they're always a solid dog, as you know, to take, especially a team with points. And this one, it's tough. This total, I like the over, especially if shots drop, this goes over for sure. But I thought the line was about right. Like I had this lined like 141. So it's a little lower here at 138. So maybe a little bit to the over. But yeah, I kind of lean the points in the over here.
We got Colgate and Buffalo here next up now. Colgate, 3.5-point road favorites, 151 the total. The over's taken some money. I agree with that. Buffalo has played up tempo in the last few years. And same with Colgate. With Matt Langiel, the coach there at Colgate, they play up and down the court, shoot a lot of threes. I like Colgate to win too, just because Buffalo is really, really depleted in terms of what they bring back. I mean, from last year, Buffalo lost a ton. We are talking about 8% of their returning possession minutes from last year are back on this team. 8%. That is the fourth fewest returning possession minutes in the entire country. Only New Mexico State, Florida A&M, and St. Bonaventure, which we know was loaded last year and is basically starting from scratch this year. Only they have fewer returning experience than the Buffalo Bulls coming into this year. So you've certainly got more continuity. You've certainly got more experience on the Colgate side. Again, you're talking about a road favorite here, but I don't think it's been priced adequately enough yet. I could have made a case for Colgate to be, even 6-point favorite, hell, even 7, honestly, in this game with just the amount of change and personnel change and the roster turnover we've seen from Buffalo from last year to this year. So that could be an adjustment. I think once they get into the max season, they'll still be a capable, competitive, solid team, but it's going to take maybe Buffalo a little bit of time. So I laid it with the road favorite here, Colgate, and also lean over the total. Conor, anything here?
Colgate brings back a solid amount, like you mentioned. And they'll be right at the top there in the Patriot League this year for sure. Buffalo has just lost a ton, and they're not very good defensively as they can give up points. I lean Colgate as well. This is one I didn't get involved with of these games. They were good last year too on the road. Was Colgate. So I kind of like the 3 with you.
All right, next up, we've got a few more games in our marquee game rundown, and then we'll get to Conor with some games and bets that he likes on the card, and then a few more from me, and then we'll basically get some Q&A from the chat. So make sure you send those in now. Don't wait till 10 minutes from now to get your questions in the chat. We'll try to keep tabs on them, and we'll get to some in a few minutes after we give our individual rundowns of other games we like. But Lehigh and Syracuse. Next up, Syracuse, a big 18-point home favorite. Here, the total around 142. It's come down actually 17. And this is another one where I understand why the money's come down because I'm on Lehigh. I am never comfortable laying with Syracuse in this double-digit home favorite range this early in the season. Although Jim Boeheim is telling everyone that'll listen, he thinks this team's going to be better than people think. He really likes the direction that this program could take this year, even though he loses, of course, his son, Buddy Boeheim, who was such a big, impactful player in the offense last year. But he's gone, but they still have Joe Girard is back this year. They apparently are very high on Jesse Edwards, Judah Mintz, and others to help keep this team going. And I think the thing that concerns me a little bit too about Syracuse in this first game, they don't want to play 2-3 zone exclusively. Remember, we always think of Syracuse every year, 2-3 zone, 2-3 zone. It's been Jim Boeheim. That's the way he's played. They want to incorporate more man-to-man. And determine what they do on a possession-by-possession basis. And, all of a sudden you go, all these years, you're pretty much exclusively 2-3 zone, and now you're trying to incorporate this, man-to-man a little bit more, and that could be an adjustment. And Lehigh actually could be one of the upper, I would say, 4 teams potentially in the Patriot League this year. I think there's a lot to like with the Lehigh Hawks this year, and I think they're going to be a team that's going to be someone to watch out for. In that conference, a very intriguing team. They've been really banged up with injuries. Jalen Sinclair could be an excellent point guard. He's one of the players that's really been ravaged by injuries for this team, but he looks like he's healthy, ready to go to start the year. There's lots to like here with Lehigh, and I think they can maintain a better level of being competitive with Syracuse than a 17-point number indicates. So I like the dog here, Lehigh, a little bit. What do you think, Con?
I like Lehigh a little bit here as well. They bring a good amount of all these guys back that have played a ton, the last 2-3 years all together, which is good. And you mentioned we'll be at the top of the Patriot League. Jim Boeheim back, his 47th year here. Syracuse, 3 of their top 4 scorers gone. I think it's going to take some time. Obviously, at Syracuse, they brought in their recruits, all their whole thing. They're always going to have a good basketball team, I think. But I think this might be too high, and it's going to take a little time for Syracuse to get rolling. The last few years they lived and died with the 3 so much. It could be interesting. Not only full game, maybe early. Some of these teams, it's going to take time to get things going. Take them first half. Grab Lehigh here, maybe right around 10. I'm guessing. I'd have to double check and look at it. But I'd grab the points. I'd lean there with them. I don't know about the total. I don't really have a feel in this one.
Yeah, this one is, again, when you're talking, first of all, the number one thing to look at first totals, you got to look at efficiency and obviously shooting percentages, defensive, offensive numbers. But first things first, it has to be pace. And Lehigh is top 100 in tempo, but Syracuse more and more as the years have gone by, they've not been looking to push pace, a little slow down. And oftentimes, Syracuse tries to get things to more of a half-court game. So I think the total could go either way. That's why I did not bet it here. All right, next up, Rice and Pepperdine. Pepperdine's taken money here in this game against Rice. They're up to 5-point home favorites. The total in this one currently sitting at 153. Another total that's gone up. I totally agree with that. Rice was an awful defensive team last year. I don't think they're going to be much better this year, but they can score with Fiedler, with Travis Evie, a good guard who can absolutely shoot from long distance. I think Rice definitely has good offensive firepower, but they're going to struggle to get stops on the defensive end of the court. And I think when you look at Pepperdine coming into this season, I think this is a bunch that certainly you got to give them a little bit of the edge certainly on the defensive end of the basketball court coming into the year. They'll be the much better defensive team than Rice. Lorenzo Romar back for yet another season. There's definitely some multiple options that they can hang. And look, when you look at this team, they've got great wing players, Pepperdine, that I think are going to be really, really problematic here. Again, Rice, they're a younger group this year, Pepperdine, but they should be a little bit more experienced coming into this year after, last year was a bit of a growing pains, transition year for the Pepperdine Waves. I think the price was reasonable on Pepperdine when it was 3. That's gone up to 5. I still lean Pepperdine. I think Pepperdine wins. They probably cover, and I think we get a lot of points here. Both of these teams should be able to score. Rice's strength is offense. They're terrible defense. Pepperdine is a better defensive team, but not a great defensive team, and they should be able to score against Rice. So the over, I think, does get there. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, Rice started out so good last year. I think they were like 14-9, and then just really faltered down the stretch. I like Pepperdine. They bring back a ton here. Mitchell, Lewis, and they can score. Pepperdine and overs on the West Coast have always been good. These last few years. So I don't blame you. This is high. I still didn't get there, and I know it's moved a little bit to Pepperdine, but I think you can lay it here. 3 was a lot better. Let's just put it that way instead of 5. But I lean Pepperdine.
All right, we got Oral Roberts and St. Mary's. This is actually one of the games late night. Very intrigued by it. St. Mary's 9.5-point home favorites, 141 the total. There's nothing that fascinates me more than a pace war. You got a team that wants to slow it down, play in the half court, and a team that wants to speed it up and go up and down. And Oral Roberts wants to go up and down. St. Mary's wants to slow it down. You've got that with Merrimack and St. John's tonight. You've got that with a few games on the board where it's just a slow, snail-paced team against a team that wants to go up and down. And it's going to really be interesting to see who wins that battle in games like this. Obviously Oral is going to want to speed things up, get in transition, shoot threes. And Max Asmus, guy that's been here forever, is back again for Oral Roberts. Remember, led them to the tournament, had a great run in the tournament a couple years ago. He's back for them. St. Mary's, when you look at them coming into this season, certainly we know they've become a very good half-court defensive team. They're always known for having a lot of size around the paint. I think that could be the one thing that would concern you a little bit about Oral Roberts. They could end up being outmanned in terms of rebounds, second chance, putbacks, that kind of thing. So that's going to be interesting to see. Again, Oral Roberts defensively wasn't all that great last year. It's going to be interesting to see if they can improve on the defensive end this year. But I will say this, there's some question marks about St. Mary's in terms of their offensive game. We know they're usually littered with Randy Bennett brings in these Aussies, these guys that can shoot three-pointers. Will they be able to maintain that this year? I'm reading some things. This may not be quite the same St. Mary's team in terms of the ball movement, the three-point shooting. I kind of want to take the points with Oral Roberts here. I do lean that way. I do have it as a small bet. I'm kind of a fan of this team. They play an exciting brand of basketball. It's just a question of I worry that the defense of St. Mary's grinds them down, and then they just get buried on the glass by St. Mary's, a bigger team in the paint. But I still like Oral Roberts a little bit here, getting the points. What do you think, Connor?
That's my worry here a little bit as well. We know St. Mary's, how good they are at home and on that court. Very good last year as well, 12-3, 26-8. They had trouble scoring last year, and they lose their top scorers, Tass and Cuse. I don't know how they bring. I know they're bringing in. It seems like they just bring in guys every year, but I think they've slipped back the last few years. As St. Mary's, Oral Roberts, Asmus, who you talked about, seems like he's been here 5 years. Should be an All-American or just about 22. A game last year. They have McBride, who's decent, can shoot it. They brought in Vanover, a big guy from Arkansas. Hopefully he can step it up for them. We know Oral Roberts wants to score. This one was tough, but I'm with you. I want the points. I'm going to make it a bet as well. I think 9.5 is a little bit too much. Even in this, with the scoring they have, I think they could keep tight with St. Mary's here. So, yeah, I like the points.
All right. Final game of the marquee games, and then we'll get to Connor's best bets or favorite plays or games that stuck out to him that he likes from a betting standpoint next. But first, Tulsa, Oregon State. Oregon State 3-point home favorites here, 143 the total in this one. I mean, you got to believe it's buy low time on Oregon State because everything that could go wrong did go wrong last year. But the fact remains you still only have 19% of your returning possession minutes back from last year. Will that be something that hampers them early on? What I do know about the Tulsa side of this equation here going into this game is it's a little bit of a banged up basketball team here coming into the season. That would be a concern going into this game. You're making that road trip right at the beginning of the season, playing a late game. It's actually a midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. I should say Pacific game on the West Coast. So an early travel spot that's not great for Tulsa. I kind of agree with there's value on Oregon State because I think they're better and everything went wrong last year. They're only laying a short number at home, but I'm going to pass now after the move because it opened 1. It's up to 3 now in this game. I agree with it, but I want to see Oregon State play first. I want to see improvement. They couldn't put the ball in the ocean at times last year from an offensive standpoint. There were games where they were held to 55, 53 last year in Pac-12. I mean, it was ugly for Oregon State offensively. I need to see it before I believe it. But I do think there's residual value on Oregon State because how bad things went last year. Probably would lean under as well. Connor Mack, anything here? Tulsa, Oregon State.
I didn't love this one. Oregon State at times could score. They were up and down, especially on their totals. Tulsa had trouble scoring last year. This team, 250 in the country. They have run guy, really. Sam Griffin, he's it. He averages 14. He's back. Other than that, they don't bring back a bunch. So I think it'll be difficult for Tulsa, who wasn't, would they have 11? They only won 11 games last year. I don't know how much crazy Oregon State is this year. I lean their way a little bit. I was going through everything of their guys, 233 and scoring last year. So I kind of lean Oregon State to win here. You mentioned threes moved up. I like the under here better. I like under this 143.
The guy you definitely want to keep an eye on here for Tulsa, Jalen Cook for sure. Jalen Cook, definitely you want to keep an eye on that for Tulsa. But Oregon State, I think, like I said, it was just a year where everything just was off the rails for this basketball team. Remember, this was a team that was good enough to make a deep tournament run last year. Again, they've got a lot of inexperience on this roster. But again, the situation, the schedule a little bit in their favor. Long road trip for Tulsa. They struggle to score themselves. They're a bit banged up. So, again, Oregon State, I think I would lean that way. But again, I'm not in a rush now to lay 3. Even at Pick'em where it opened, I'm like, I kind of want to bet Oregon State. And I was hesitant at Pick'em. I'm even more hesitant now at -3, but I'd still lean to the Beavers. All right, good stuff. Connor Mack, let's go to you. Everybody watching, hit the like button. If you've got questions about specific games on the card, make sure you get those in now because we'll be on the air for about 12 minutes or so. We really want to keep this show to an hour most days that we're on. But Connor Mack, the floor is yours. Rhyme them off, the games you like and some other bets you like on this card.
Yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to it with someone in the chat because I want to talk about this. South Dakota State versus Akron. Let's get right into this one. It's 3.5 for Akron. See what the Jackrabbits can do, after being very good last year, 30-5 in the Summit. And I think they come back. This team can still score. I don't know if they can shoot it as well as they did last year from the 3, but I think they'll be very good there. On the other side, Akron 14-6 was a solid team in the MAC, and it's solid here. The side's a little bit of a toss-up in this one. Akron might be able to get the win. This one's tough because I could see at 4 you'd want the points with the Jackrabbits. But in the end, I'm on the over here. I think both these teams could score. I think this was too low. Give me the over 143. It stood out to me a little bit. As long as the shots drop, I think we get the over in this game. Anything here?
There you go. Liking the over here in this one. In theory, South Dakota State's a team I want to bet overs with. They're a good offensive. But the only issue is with Akron, they are snails like crazy.
Yeah.
They're going to slow this thing right down. They're projected to be 347th in the country in terms of pace. I actually have a small bet on the side, and that's South Dakota State plus the points here. And Earl Sports Bets, I see, likes that side as well. I didn't touch the total. That would be because I like South Dakota State. I kind of think it could get over the total because it's going to be a correlated kind of game. I think if Akron covers, it stays under. South Dakota State, it goes over.
You might be right, But I think another thing, South Dakota State doesn't have very good defense. So Akron should be able to score. So maybe that's why I think it can get over. Especially
Efficiency
at
can
this number.
overcome pace for Akron, right? Because South Dakota State is kind of shaky on defense, which is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the over there. Let's get to my next one here. I want to talk about. We already talked a couple, the Oral Roberts and a few other. Air Force, Bowling Green here. This one for me was straight to the total. I'm on the under. Air Force. This is a contrast to both styles here. Bowling Green up top, Air Force basically almost dead last. They're like 353, whatever they were. At 350s of all categories, scoring, all that shit. 11 and 18 last year. I think they dictate the pace in this game. That they keep this game into the 60s. That's what I think. We know Bowling Green can get up and down and score and have the guys to do that. I think Air Force just drags it out. This number's dropped. That's the only shitty thing. I got a better number. So it was kind of had this earlier. Now at 135, I still lean that way, but it's just a lean. I can't be going crazy giving out because I got a better number and it's fallen. What do you think?
I like Air Force a little bit here, plus the points. I think Bowling Green was absolute shit defensively last year, but Air Force is going to play slow. Air Force on the road may struggle a bit more offense. What's going to give? Air Force's offense on the road, which is kind of worrisome last year, or a bad Bowling Green defense. Something's got to give there, but I do lean Air Force and the under. I have nothing on the total at all, but I understand why you're liking the under. What's next? I think you like the Houston game.
No, next is that's last. I'll go quick on that one. Texas State, Washington State here. I like this Texas State team last year. It was pretty good. 21-8, 12-6 in conference. I think they play good in this one. They bring back a solid scoring in this. Washington State brings back a little bit of a turnover. I don't know how much they can score tonight. I lean under in this game, but I like the points better. Give me the plus 13.5. That's what I got. Even if 13 or 12.5, I still think that's enough. I still think Texas State can cover this number. It's going to take time, I think, for Washington State to get going. And they could be all right in the Pac-12, but give me Texas State. Give me the points. What do you think here?
Giving you all right, like in Texas State here is a Conor Mack in this one against Washington State. Washington State, to me, I like the direction they're going in. But again, you're talking about a Texas State team that in their conference, they've been successful. When you look at last year, shot the ball, pretty good overall. I think offensively they've got enough weapons to be able to stay in this game. It'll be interesting if they're able to do that. The one thing about Texas State too is sometimes on defense they could really frustrate you, and you wonder if Washington State's ever going to be able to pull away and win this game by enough of a margin. I've seen them have some really big offensive droughts against teams that were able to get in their grill and guard them, for a full shot clock. So that could be an issue here tonight against Texas State. All right, and what else have you got?
Just the last one, Houston. I haven't bet this yet, and I get it's a ton of points. I would take Houston. I think they're the top 3 team in the country. It's just, are they going to be entertained? There's a bunch of these big spreads today, and we didn't go through a ton of them. Northern Colorado is decent. They just still don't play any defense, at times. So Houston, if they play how they want to, like they could score 40. This could be like 75-45. And Houston got me last year sometimes. When they want to half-ass shit, they wouldn't cover these numbers or first half. So, but I just think they're that talented and a lot of these big numbers. I think you lay it or pass with Houston. What do you think here?
I'm on this as well. This is one of the bigger favorites on the card that I liked, and that's Houston. Houston's a legit national championship contender. I love what this team can do. We know they have the backcourt. Sasser and the company are back. We know the defense is outstanding. It's always what you get under Calvin Sand. They've always been an elite rebounding team. I mean, just fundamentally sound, great, well-coached, good enough offense. I think they've actually gotten better on offense the last year or two. Remember, there were years where it was all about the defense and it was just, could they score enough? Well, now they have the offense to go with that elite defense, the great rebounding. I think it's too much for Northern Colorado. Big size and length advantage as well for Houston. So very much so agree with you here. I think it could be, again, it's all about focus too. And I think in the first game of the year, even the best teams, they want to come out and start strong. You should be excited, right? First game. It shouldn't be a look ahead. It's your first game of the year. You're at home. You want to make a statement here that, hey, we are a legit, top, I think 2 or 3 team in the country, Houston on paper coming into the season. So I definitely like the Houston side here with you on that one. All right. I'm going to run down some of mine and then we'll get some questions and then we'll do best bets and we'll wrap things up. I'm going to go rapid fire. I can't, so many bets that I'm just going to rhyme them off without too much analysis. I like Penn plus the points against Iona tonight. I think it was just too many points in that game. Penn Quakers. I'm looking to back them this year, an improved squad. Dingle, an outstanding player for them. I think they're getting too many points there in that game against Iona. I like the over in the Toledo-Valpo game. I think that game will have enough points to get over the total. I like Hofstra plus the points in the over versus Princeton. I'm one of my favorite totals of the entire card is Chattanooga-Charleston over. Both of those teams are going to want to play fast. Both of those teams are loaded with firepower. The only problem is, guess what that total opened? Like in the 150 range, and now it's like 158. I mean, it's just a huge move. Everybody was onto that, and I agree fully. I mean, you've lost a lot of value, but I still like it. I like Youngstown State laying a short number against Canisius. Canisius is really going to have a rough year. Youngstown State, an improved team. I think Youngstown State laying a short number on the road against Canisius is a good bet. We talked Ohio Belmont already. George Mason, I mentioned that I like the George Mason side in that game. What else here? Let me see what that we didn't talk about yet. That I like. Oh, I like the over in Wilmington, North Carolina. But again, that's gone up 146.5 to 152. I think Wilmington as a dog might cover, but I like the total a lot more in that Wilmington, North Carolina game. Of course, Hubert Davis, what a run for them all the way to the national championship last year. The added board games. I'm on the over with Howard in Kentucky, but again, that one's gone up 143.5 to 148.5. So we've seen a big move there. I am on continue on Siena as a short. I think Siena is going to be one of the best teams in the Metro Atlantic this year. I really think so. I think it's a short number. I think they're better than Holy Cross going into that game. I think they can win and cover on the road in that game. We mentioned Colgate Buffalo already. Marshall and Queens. Queens is a newbie to college basketball, Division I college basketball, and they are really a team that's got a lot of inexperience. Marshall has got a lot of experience. They're offensively loaded. I think Marshall takes advantage. They win and cover on the road against Queens, laying 4.5. I love the over. You want to talk about a breakneck pace type of basketball game tonight? Marshall and Queens will be that. 162.5 is where it opened, and it's up to 167.5. You're going to get the ball, get the best shot you can get, the quickest you can get it from both sides. Of course, we know Marshall's always been up tempo under Dan D'Antoni all these years. That's not going to change. Queens is all the reading I've done on Queens is they really want to go breakneck pace. So you can understand why this total's in the high 160s. It should be a fun, exciting track meet kind of basketball game there with Marshall and Queens tonight. Another over for me with Houston Christian, a very up-tempo team as well, and I can't believe they opened that total in the 140s. Florida International is not exactly a slow-paced team either. They can play above average pace. Neither team great defensively. I was stunned it was 147.5, that total. Well, it was 147.5. It's 156.5, 157 now. 10-point move right now toward that over in the FIU Houston Christian game. But I definitely agree with that. And I think I laid the 35 with TCU against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I think TCU is a Big 12 dark horse. I think this is one of the better TCU teams they've had. They had a great finish to the year last year. And I think they're going to make, something even better of it this year. Great at both ends of the floor. We saw it already this year with Mississippi Valley State against Baylor. They got eviscerated, Mississippi Valley State, by Baylor earlier today. These MEAC and SWAC teams, when they play these power conference teams, they just get obliterated. So I don't mind laying 35 with TCU. I think UAB laying a big number is probably worth a look as well against Alabama State. Same kind of thing, facing a SWAC MEAC team. It's a complete mismatch. It wouldn't be a surprise to see both TCU and UAB win big in those two games tonight. So that's about it. I mean, North Florida, Gonzaga gave up 99 to Tennessee in a scrimmage game. So the over might be like that defense looks like it's a worry for Gonzaga. They think they're going to be great offensively again, but that defense struggling early in their scrimmage in their preseason games. So the over might get there. North Florida, Gonzaga over 160. Same with Nichols in Arizona. Nichols plays fast. We know Arizona ever since they had the disciple of Mark Few taken over as the head coach of the Arizona basketball team. They have played at a much more brisk pace under Tommy Lloyd. So that game should have a lot of points as well. Nichols State and Arizona. That's it. There you go. That was rapid fire through like 98% of my card right there. So
are you on Toledo over?
Yes, Toledo Valpo over the total.
Let's
quickly hit some questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up with best bets. I saw what some of the questions are earlier. Bama Longwood from Big Red 15. Bama Longwood over 148.5. Bama's always a team I'm interested over the total. They couldn't hit threes to save their lives last year. Now, Nate Oates has stockpiled the roster this year with more three-point shooters, better artillery from the perimeter. In theory, that's supposed to help. I want to sit back, watch a game first, see if that three-point shooting improves, because they couldn't hit a thing from three, and they kept shooting threes last year. It drove me nuts seeing it last year from Alabama. But in theory, that game could go over the total if the three-point shooting's as good as or improved like they seem to think it will be.
That one was tough for me. I was going back and forth. Like, Bama's clicking, they cover the number, but I was a little bit hesitant to just lay it, and you're right. And if they drop, it'll go over. So I stayed off in the end.
All right, Don Play says, would you take Weber State plus 13.5 over Washington? Please help. I honestly would lean Weber State. I'm not ready to lay with Mike Hopkins. I mean, this has been a mediocre outfit, Washington. Not been impressed with what I've seen or the trajectory in the program. Weber State, Big Sky program, but always an upper half of the Big Sky program. I think they can. I think they could hang in this game. I think, the problem is they could go through some droughts here against the zone, Weber State. But if they don't, I don't know if Washington's good enough offensively to cover a number like this. So I'm with you. I didn't bet the game, but I'd lean Weber State.
Me too. I mean, I kind of lean. I didn't bet it either. I'd lean that way. There's no way right now that I'd lay it with them.
Long Beach Cal Baptist from our guy, Jay Peasy. We got to answer his question. He's with us every show, it seems. I like the over a little bit. Both teams, above average pace. Nothing on the side. I like both teams. I actually kind of want to back both teams. There should both be above average good teams this year. I'd just lean over. What do you think there, Connor?
I had nothing there, too. I kind of like the over, but nada.
There we go. And Hofstra, I mentioned that Don Play on my Hofstra. What about the gel? That's for me to know. No, actually, you know what? It's I go back and forth, but usually the gel that I use is just it's called Dippity Doo. It's called Stronghold, and it's Stronghold means the wind never does anything to this hair. So that's the beauty of it. That's what it's all about. It won't mess with it. Oh, Mike in the chat. Albany plus 16 against Towson. Albany looks like they're shorthanded. They suspended 5 players due to conduct off the court. An Albany team that I don't think is going to be that bad in the America East. But I'll tell you what, Towson really improved last year. And if Albany's shorthanded, that would be a dog I wouldn't be interested in. I mean, I'm not laying it with Towson, but if you made me choose, I would lean to Towson.
Yeah, I would too. I thought the number was a little bit large. Albany's not very good at all. Let's touch this one real quick, Babano. Any expectations for Manhattan? What do you think? And the coach left, right? A couple weeks ago. Man. They've got problems right now. Team can't score ever anyways. What do you think? Go ahead.
They're fucked up right now, Manhattan. I mean, Steve Masiello resigns 2 weeks before the season. And now the assistant coach says, peace out, like, over the weekend, says I'm out of here.
I saw that.
So the coaching staff's in disarray. Players are transferring out since Masiello left. You got to play a VCU team that, like I said, with St. Louis earlier, they're in contention to win the Atlantic 10, which I think is going to be a very deep, better conference this year. Multiple teams can win it. The number's gone up. I can't back Manhattan. I know that. I mean, you're not getting the value anymore. 18.5 up to 22.5 now with VCU in that game, but it's VCU or nothing for me.
Yeah, it's just the number's too huge with VCU. Win comfortably. They could win by 18 or they could win by 26. So I couldn't lay it.
Will Kentucky cover? I like the over against Howard. Howard's one of those teams that I've seen them rise up, compete with some of these power teams, and then there's been times where it's the shots aren't falling for them and they get absolutely steamrolled. So I'm hoping they make enough shots for the over. I think they're going to struggle to defend Kentucky a little bit here in this game, Howard. They're not a great defensive team anyway, so that's why I like the over, but it's too many points for me to trust Kentucky. I have seen Kentucky sleepwalk in the non-conference for years, many games under Calipari.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I wanted a few more in the 30s to really look at Howard, but yeah, no way I'm laying it with Kentucky, especially this first game. No.
Yeah, a lot of changes too with Kentucky coming into this year, in terms of their personnel. Severe Wheeler's already banged up. You look at it. I know that Oscar Shibwe is back. That's certainly going to help. But, a knee injury in an exhibition game suffered by the point guard Wheeler. That's not something you like to see going into a brand new season. So that's why I would be reluctant to lay the points with Kentucky there. So I'm with you there. Just one more comment we'll get in because we got to wrap this thing up. We got to keep it as close to an hour as we can. I think there was one that I saw that
get Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri minus 19. Jake Burns. I wanted to get to his. Yeah, Missouri laying the points here against in their game tonight. Missouri I think has the chance to be an improved club this year. No question about that. Do I want to lay 19 in this spot? I'll tell you what. We've got Southern Indiana, brand new, making the step up to Division I college hoops, and these teams making that step up. I either bet against them or I want to see what they do in the first game and making a judgment on them from there. So it'd be Missouri or nothing just based on that, but I'm going to sit back and watch. I want to see what Missouri looks like.
Me too. Just I got to see them a little bit just fully. They were just gutted last year. They played better second half of the season when they got, together more, but big number there. I think that they could be better though this year, than last year with the speed bumps they had. I just want to watch a little bit here early.
Yeah, no Oscar tonight. Yes, that's right, Jake. Because Calipari said over the weekend he'd be shocked if he plays. So he was pretty much, when you hear the coach say that over the weekend, you pretty much think he's doubtful. So you'd assume he's out, a no-go tonight for Kentucky. So that and Wheeler out. Yeah, exactly. Pump the brakes on laying points with Kentucky.
All I gotta say is this chat. How weak are you? This is opening night college basketball, and we got 99 likes. When our guy's gonna give out $100 or $250 or a couple 50s to two people? Get out of here. I guess you don't deserve it then.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to shutting this thing down right now because it's best bet time to wrap up our first edition of college basketball.
Should give best bets either. Okay.
Come on, get to 100 likes, 144 live viewers. Hit that damn like button. Don't be as Dutch on our NBA show says, dis motherfucking respectful. Don't be that way. All right, but yeah, we're going to be here 3 days a week. Our next show, by the way, no show tomorrow. It's a very short card. Same with Wednesday, a little shorter card. But Thursday, Friday, big slates. We will be here Thursday and Friday once again this week, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for college basketball net profit. All right, let's see if we can bring home our first best bet of the new college basketball season. Conor Mack, what have you got lined up for your first best bet of the season on net profit?
Yeah, well, it's pretty shitty. The guy, says, I'm going to give money away. And these sorry asses can't even get to 100. We have over 150 in here.
Best bet to ourselves then, yeah.
Well, I got Texas State. It's dropped to 12.5. I took 13.5. I do like the under. I have some money on that under as well, but plus 13.5 Texas State. Still get it, I think, at 12.5. I think they keep it close.
All right, there you go. Texas State plus the points. And I'm going to give out a best bet. I haven't even mentioned, we haven't even touched this game yet. It was my annual tradition last year in the first couple games of the season, and it worked out well. Fading Pittsburgh. I'm going to try it again. I like Tennessee Martin tonight, plus 8.5. Are there nines out there still? Let me just double check bet stamp, see if there's nines. But even if it's 8.5, there has been some movement toward UT Martin in this game already, but I agree with it. I think Pitt's a vulnerable favorite. They've had more personnel disruptions in the offseason. Yeah, it looks like 8.5 is the best number. That's okay. I'm cool with it. 8.5 minus 110, plus 8.5 minus 110 UT Martin. I think UT Martin, when you look at this team, they're actually going to be quite solid this year. When you see what they've got, the Skyhawks are going to have one of their best teams in a very long time. That the backcourt is absolutely outstanding with KJ Simon back. Yeah, he's an incredible shooter, runs the offense extremely well. I think they've increased in the front court, a little more size, a little bit better defense and rebounding as well. A lot to like here. So there's definitely some improvements here with this UT Martin team. Backcourt's better, a little more size in the paint. Pitt with all kinds of issues coming into the year yet again. Let's go with plus 8.5 Tennessee Martin against Pittsburgh for my best bet here for this Monday college basketball card. Let me just see.
Ron, real quick, you weren't here, my man. Sorry, it was just Slaughter's going to give out $100, and we were here until about 5 minutes ago. Yep. There was 99 for the last freaking 8 minutes. That's all. Yep. But hey, it's up to him now. Maybe he won't give it out. So,
well, apparently
that's why there's money. It's not like just like give us a hundo. It's Mando. Normally you should do that, but we're handing out money here. But
yeah, I mean, Slaughter's doing something special here. First show, trying to pump it up, and here now we've got 120. There we go. Ask and you shall receive. So there we go, and we are happy to announce that we have selected 2 lucky winners, Sweaty Butcher and Boogie Mane. There you go, Sweaty Butcher and Boogie Mane. Congratulations. They are going to be the winners of the cash prize, if you will, from our guy Jeff Slaughter. So there you go.
Message him.
And make sure you message Jeff Slaughter on Twitter or at Pub Sports Radio. Yeah, and they will make sure they hook you up. So there you go. Great stuff. Thanks for getting us to 100. We eventually got there. That's all that matters when it's all said and done. That's a wrap. And that's a wrap for me. I need a break because I've been doing shows for like 5 hours now, and I'm more than ready for a break. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Yeah, message Pub Sports Radio on Twitter to claim your winnings. Congrats to both of you. Great first show. Looking forward to doing this 3 days a week for the next couple months. Our next show will be Thursday. All right, Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. We will be back for our next edition of College Basketball Net Profit right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you again Thursday for another edition of College Basketball Net Profit right here on Pub Sports Radio.